Clint Lamb covers Alabama for Bama Insider, part of On 3 Sports. You can follow Clint on Twitter at Clint R. Lamb. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What's up, Clint? How are you today? Clint, you are muted, unfortunately. Clint is...
I'm doing fantastic, guys. How you guys doing?
Doing awesome. Thanks a lot.
Good mood lighting where you are right there. I like the blue.
Yeah, I like being in a cave. I don't like natural light while I'm trying to get work done. I've always worked better late at night. So, I try to, even during the day, give it kind of a nighttime vibe, and I'm able to get a lot more work done. So I enjoy it.
Okay, whatever works.
Yeah, I like it. I'm kind of like you. On Saturdays watching football, it is dark and cold in my basement. That's the way I like it. Let's talk about Alabama's spring game. We'll start there, and everybody is going to start at quarterback. Your view on the quarterback race coming out of Alabama's spring game is what?
Oh man, it's a tough question because watching through initially, you thought the quarterbacks did pretty poorly, and then you go back and you watch again. And granted, I think everybody noticed all the drops. I mean, certainly the numbers on the surface would have looked a lot better if guys just would have caught the passes that were, catchable. So then you go back through and you're like, actually, these quarterbacks didn't look as bad as I initially thought. But when you start listening to Nick Saban and kind of looking at where he wants the position to fit into not just the offense, but the team in general, you start to realize, okay, it wasn't a great performance by either quarterback. Like, I don't think it was terrible by any means, but when you're trying to teach these guys, we know that both Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe a little bit more so, we know they have mobility and can extend plays and create with their legs, but what can they do from within the pocket? It's not just about them calling their own numbers. How do they utilize the guys that are around them? Because, Nick Saban has been a huge fan and has been pretty vocal about that as far as the skill positions, as far as the offensive line. He thinks this offense has a chance to be really good, but you've got to get quality play out of the quarterback position. But it's not about being Superman. It's about taking what the defense gives you. It's about utilizing your weapons properly. And that's something that I think both these quarterbacks, still need to make strides in.
Yeah, Clint, we've heard for weeks, rumors about the potential Alabama and Saban looking for a quarterback out of the transfer portal. You've got till April 30th for that, so that's coming up. But if I ask you better chance, one of those two true freshman quarterbacks that we saw on Saturday or a transfer still coming in and being the starting quarterback for Alabama?
Which is more likely?
Yep.
I really liked what I saw out of Dylan Lonergan. I thought he did take what the defense gave him. He played within the offense. He, to me, represented exactly what Nick Saban wants out of that position this fall, more than any of the other quarterbacks. Now, granted, I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying that he's going to be, heavily in that competition. Like, he is a true freshman. It was one scrimmage. I haven't been seeing what else has been going on behind the scenes, but for that one particular scrimmage, I thought that he looked the most like the quarterback that Nick Saban and Tommy Rees are both going to want for that offense. With that being said, I do think the transfer portal is a very real option right now. Now, granted, I don't think there's anybody out there in the portal that Alabama would want to go at. I don't think the available options are not game changers. And I don't really think you're going to add a game changer in the sense that you're going to add a guaranteed top 15, top 20 quarterback in college football. But I do think that Tommy Rees knows what he wants in his quarterback, and he didn't have to have the all-world player, just somebody that can operate the offense that he's kind of wanting to establish and run and can play off the defense. I think that's a lot more important to this coaching staff right now. And if that can be Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson, I think that they also add a lot of other elements that could make them a lot more dynamic and can really help the offense. But I think primarily the goal is to just find somebody who can do the things that they need to do, get the football into the hands of the playmakers that they're going to have on offense and allow them to operate and kind of do what they do. And so which one is more likely? I do think that Alabama is going to try to find a quarterback to add out of the transfer portal, but it's got to be the right guy. That guy is not in the portal right now, so what do? I do think that Nick Saban and the way that he answered some of those questions on Saturday following the scrimmage, I think it was kind of him letting the world know, if you're a quarterback and you're considering entering, go ahead and do it because we're looking for somebody.
Clint Lamb is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline at Clint R. Lamb on Twitter, part of Bama Insider, which is part of On 3 Sports. That's where you follow Clint on Twitter. He is on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. You don't often see Nick Saban talk about players in such glowing terms as he used for Justice Haynes. You really don't see it for true freshmen. He's done it twice now, basically saying the same thing both times, Clint, but both times with you guys asking questions behind a microphone, he has talked about Justice Haynes in as glowing terms as he will ever talk about a player. That speaks volumes about what he's seen about Haynes already at Alabama.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that Nick Saban understands, like, you're not going to be able to keep this guy hidden, like, as much as you want to. Anybody that watches, and granted, his production, especially on the ground, it wasn't world changing on Saturday. I think that was a lot more of a product of the offensive line, not necessarily getting the push that they needed to. He was working behind the second team offensive line that consisted of a lot of true freshmen that are still trying to figure some things out. I think the defensive line depth is a little bit better than the offensive line depth right now. So when you start working into your, second teams, I do think that the defensive line is going to have a pretty big advantage over the offensive line. But when you watch Justice Haynes, everything that you would look for out of the position, he can do, right? I mean, he's adequate in pass protection. I haven't seen any issues on that front. I thought he had a couple of really good, blocks on Saturday, finding the right man, getting him blocked. And then, when you look at him as a runner, he brings the power element that Alabama's offense has been missing the last couple of years. Brian Robinson brought it in 2021, but I think that Brian was more of just a hammer. I think that Justice Haynes can be a little bit more dynamic than that. And I think, just the usage in the passing game. Like, for whatever reason, Haynes didn't get a ton of opportunities in high school to catch the football. When you started seeing him go through, the Under Armour All-American game and a lot of those circuits, he really displayed the ability to do it. And that's continued ever since, back in December when he first arrived on campus. He's been a guy who can catch the football and run the football. And you got to see him do a little bit of both of those two things on Saturday. And it's been impressive.
So I saw that Caleb Downs wins the Leroy Jordan Headhunter Award. Everybody's been talking about Downs. Is he going to be the freshman defensive version of what you're talking about with Justice right now?
I definitely I think he I do think he's one of the best players on the team, if not the best player on the team. Wow. And granted, I think there's an argument for several guys, but when you look at what he can do for the defense, as far as just being a transformative defensive back, you can look to the Tennessee game last year and a lot of the issues that they had covering, or stopping Tennessee's offense. A presence like Caleb Downs would do a lot in alleviating those issues. He brings the physicality that DeMarco Hellams did as far as run stopping ability and, rolling up into the box and making plays and tackles, very reliable tackler, but just he doesn't have the deficiencies in coverage and the limitations in coverage that DeMarco Hellams did, or that you saw, out of Malachi Moore when he was having to play star. I think moving Malachi to star is really going to help him. It's going to solve a lot of problems. You bring in a guy like Earl Little Jr., who's probably going to start at that position. He's got a lot of perimeter cornerback experience, but he's also very scrappy. He can play that position effectively. And then you bring in a guy like Caleb Downs as your other safety, to where when they're kind of using, shifts and motions to try to create matchups, you've got a guy who you can rely on. So I just think what he's going to be able to provide the back half of Alabama's defense is something that they haven't had really in quite a while. And I'm excited to watch him, see what he can do.
Clint Lamb, for a few more moments, were you able, Clint, to notice a difference in the offensive line? That has been one of the other talking points coming out of people inside these scrimmages or spring practices, is that this line has a different edge to it this year under Eric Wolford. Were you able to see any of that in the spring game?
From a size perspective, you can definitely see it. I mean, it's worlds different than it was the last couple of years. They're trying to recruit different guys, and that's certainly noticeable. As far as the consistent push in the run game, I don't think either offensive line was able to do that very effectively. I also think that from a play calling perspective, they were very vanilla. I don't think Alabama wants to, announce themselves as back as the old Alabama in an A-Day game. I think that they kind of try to keep things under wrap as much as they possibly could. The place to make that statement would be Texas in week 2. You got MTSU in week 1, turn around and play Texas. Texas has got a really good offense. That's going to be a tough test for Alabama. And I think that that's where you're really going to see them try to physically dominate and kind of impose their will on their opponent. And we're going to, see if they're going to be able to do that. But just what I saw on Saturday in the A-Day game was nothing like I'd heard from very reliable sources all throughout the spring. Yeah. And I think that there's a reason for that.
Tell me what you've seen from James Smith, the freshman defensive lineman.
Impressive player. He's definitely going to be involved in that rotation. It's possible that he could end up starting. I do think that with Tim Smith and Jaheim Otis and Justin Aboybe, they have a lot of guys who are going to quote unquote be the starters, but James Smith's certainly going to be in that rotation. I don't think he had the best 8A game. Like, there was nothing that he did that really stood out compared to some of the other freshmen, but you can clearly tell the talent. He's got the ability to rush the passer both from the edge if you need him to and on the interior. He can stop the run well, so he's a complete 3-down defensive lineman. You want as many of those on the field as you could possibly get. And I think with him, it's all about, how comfortable he is and does he understand his role and not do things that are going to get you beat. But the natural talent and ability is fantastic.
Outside of quarterback, the position battle over summer and into fall camp, that if you could watch it, that's the one you would pick to watch. You can give me one or two if you like, but the best position battles outside of quarterback.
Inside linebacker for me. I was extremely impressed with Justin Jefferson. One of the most impressive players on Saturday. Offense, defense, first team, second team, didn't matter. He can run, he can hit, he's extremely instinctive, he's a tone setter, and he just brings some elements to that room that I think have been missing the last couple of years from Alabama's inside linebackers. I think Jahad Campbell's a very talented, versatile player. Thought Tresman Marshall was very steady. Sean Murphy's a good player, but then you also got Deontay Lawson, who we expect to be one of the two starters there at inside linebacker. So what does that end up looking like? Do they think that Deontay Lawson can play Mike and handle the communication side of things, or would they rather leave him at will and let him just kind of do what he does? He's a very talented player in his own right, and put somebody else out there. Or do they want someone like Jahad Campbell or Justin Jefferson kind of roaming around back there making big hits? I'll be curious to see how that competition plays out for sure.
Well, Clint will have it covered. I did want to ask you before you go, Clint. We were joking about it earlier, but DeMarcus Riddick rides to Denny Chimes with Nick Saban in his car. DeMarcus, though he's an state of Alabama kid, for those that don't know, is a Georgia commitment, one of the top 25, 30 players in America. Rather significant that Nick Saban could have picked a lot of people to ride shotgun there, picked him.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to roll out the red carpet for somebody, stick him in the car and let him ride with Nick Saban. That's something that you don't see too often. So, yeah, he's a priority target, and you can clearly see it.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say it's kind of hard to say no once coach is giving you a ride, but we've seen crazier in recruiting. I don't think there's any doubt. All right, go follow Clint on Twitter at Clint R. Lamb, and go On3 and Bama Insider. He's part of both those. Clint, thank you very much for the time. Great talking with you as always.
Absolutely, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, buddy. Take care. Clint with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.